First, I'd like to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for coming out of the heat to join us. I really, really appreciate it. Joleen has prepared this for a while, so it should be a really interesting talk. We have lemonade, water, and cookies, choices by donation. And then we also have our Exploring Halstead self-guided tour. And we have our regular brochure from Halstead, so if you have any relatives that are coming to town, you can send them that. And then we have our brand new business cards. And they have our email and all our contact information on the back. Without further ado, I would like to have Joleen. I did want to say Jared is on our board and he is going to record all this. And we're going to put a little snippet on Facebook, so that will be nice. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Joleen, who is our President Emeritus and current Vice President, and Sarah Rizza. She's our, good Lord, she's our current president. And
Ruby?
Yes, and Ruby Buller. She and I made cookies. Yay.
Rich, behind you.
Oh, and Richard Basor. He was in charge of getting the cart here, and he has restored the cart. So if you could all give him a great big hand, that was a big feat. Now the other one that did not want to be mentioned is Joe Trigo. He also helped with the cart. And then I'm Kimberly Hahn. I'm the curator at the museum. So if you bring your boxes of heirlooms in, we'll make sure that they get a good home. So without further ado, here's Joleen.
We used Bus Howry. Does everybody know Bus? Stand up Bus or wave or something? There it is. You want to talk a little bit about your database briefly?
Okay.
My talk is about 45 minutes, so if you get thirsty or hungry during the middle, please come over and get some cookies and some water, some lemonade.
This database I started probably 25, 30 years ago. About the first time I got a computer and learned how to operate a little bit. Every time I came across something,
Can't hear you. Eat
every
the
time,
mic.
every time I came across something related to Halstead, I put it in here. I have over 3,000 entries now, and there's 700 of those. I don't know where the location is. I got 700 businesses that I don't know where they were. The early directories, advertisements and papers never listed a street number, hardly ever. And it wasn't until about the 40, 30, 40, 50s that they started listing street numbers. But anyways, as I go, and these dates that Joleen got from me, they don't necessarily mean the dates, the complete dates that they started and finished, but they're dates that the earliest and latest that I have found. And there's a lot of holes in here. Sometimes there's gaps, 20, 25 years where I have nothing. So if anybody knows anything that I'm wrong or something that I don't have, let me know and I will gladly add it. And, I also have one folder full of photos by location. And since we were going to have this on Main Street outside, we didn't hook it up. We weren't going to hook it up to a projector. If we would have, we could have, right here, Joe's looking at them. I just go by location and photos that go down the street. But that'll be for some other time, I guess. I guess that's all I have.
We are going to talk just about the 200 block on West Main, and I was at Busty's house probably a total of at least 8 hours talking about one block. So if you ask me if we're going to do another block, I may give you a blank stare. But anyway, there's a lot of information on this one block, and we're talking 154 years of information on this one block. So we're going to start with, we're going to talk about Bess and I. Bessie and I are first cousins once removed. Between the two of us, we have a lot of time on Main Street. I had 3 uncles, a grandfather, a great-grandfather at one time on Main Street, and my mother worked at Dennis Variety Store at one time. My work history, I worked for Tom Bell, the newspaper U.S. Water News, for 25 years, behind which is now Cassie Main's physical therapy office. And then I worked at the old hardware store next door with Margaret Kreisinger for a few years, and I recently retired from being the director of the public library for 17 years. So I have been on the 200 block of Main Street for 42 years. So at one time, Bus had 4 uncles, a grandfather who either worked or had a business on Main Street of Halstead, and Bus also had a grandfather who had a hardware store here in the 1920s, and a great uncle who was Dr. Hertzler's assistant when their office was above the Opera House building. And Bus had 2 different stores on Main Street before, 3 different stores on Main Street before owning Halstead Hardware for 19 years. So we have a lot of longevity on Halstead Main Street, and our relatives were, one of the first ones here in 1873. Okay, I'm going to start across the street on the corner. There's a plaque over there that I hope everybody's read throughout the years. But in the fall of 1872, Halstead Township was organized and a tract of 480 acres were purchased from the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. Can everybody hear me? Mm-hmm. Good, okay. In 1873, Halstead was laid out. In 1877, we were a third-class city. So the foundation, their very first building, which is in this picture here, the foundation of the first building erected in the town site was laid out in March 1873 by G.W. Sweezy. And he's got a street named after him. This was a 2-story wooden building used as a hotel called the Sweezy House. It was 32 by 42 feet. Mr. Sweezy served as the first postmaster in this building. What you're actually looking at is it's the Sweezy House, but it was changed later. We'll get to that. We don't have a picture of an early Sweezy House. 2 buildings were moved from Sedgwick. O.Y. Hart owned one and used it for store purposes, and Fred Eckert also moved a building from Sedgwick and used it as a drugstore. So we've got 3 buildings now in 1873. In 1885, the Sweezy House was changed to the Central Hotel and owned by G.F. Wiles. The library and reading room in this building started about 1892. There was a book social in 1894, and the admission to the social was a good book, and refreshments were mush and milk. We've come a long ways. We've got cookies and lemonade. In 1887 through 1906, the Carboneer brothers had a grocery store in that building. In June of 1907, Ferguson purchased the stock and moved south down the street. In 1908, M.S. Ingalls drugstore was located there. Maybe some of you remember me talking about M.S. Ingalls one time, because he's the one that said Kit Carson was here and the Kit Carson tree and all that, and that Mr. Ingalls made all that up. He thought that Halstead needed a story to bring people to town, so he made up the story about Kit Carson being here and on all that. And, the tree would grow and it would die and they'd plant another one. That was all just fake news. Mr. Ingalls died a year after he opened his store, and his son, who had been training as a druggist, died not long after. So then we have Mr. W.R. Masters, Chappie Masters. Anybody remember that name?
Yes.
He was the son-in-law of Mr. Ingalls, and he took over the drugstore. And several names were the drugstore. This happens all through Main Street. They had a name and they changed it to something else, and they went back to the other name. So some of this research was hard to follow because you had one building, but there was 3 businesses in it. Well, then you maybe had a business upstairs or downstairs or out back, and like Bussy said, none of that had numbers with it. And if there were street numbers, later on they changed them, so it caused havoc. So it was the Pioneer Drugstore, Dinty Moore's Drugstore, Master's Drug, back to Pioneer, and then in 1923, John Spaeth, S-P-A-E-T-H, purchased the business. And in 1932, that wooden building was demolished. Then we go to the first drugstore, the first oil company. Do we have a picture of that? Picture, lady. We do. There should be a picture of the Dries. I don't have one there. We saw this picture early on in the week, and then we couldn't find it in time to have it blown up. But this is the first drugstore that was on that corner. And that started in
First filling station.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
On which corner, up there?
Right here, where the Sweezy house was.
It just started.
We haven't moved. We're still on the very corner.
All right.
So that was the Dries Oil Company until 1951. So about 11 years it was the oil company. And also in back, there was an ice house in the back of the building. All right, we talked about the Dries Oil Company and the ice. We were just talking about the ice house in the back of the building. Here come some names that you might remember. 1953, Carl Lohmeyer purchased the business and named it Phillips 66. And then Doug McDonald owned it until 1969. Remember that name? Clancy Galliard purchased the building in 1973.
Hold the wall.
And in my lifetime, Red Nightingale purchased the building in 1976 and owned it until 1979 somewhere and called it Red Standard. And like Bessie said, these names, these dates are in the database, but we don't know exactly when Red would have sold it. We just know in 79 he was still there. And it seems to me like there's a picture out there somewhere of somebody sitting on a gas pump in the 70s. Oh, in the 80s, okay.
Call it the slab. Yep.
And then there's a big gap, and then it was Halstead Total in 97, Halstead Service Center in 99, Conaga One Stop in 2001, Jumpstart from 2017 to the present. So that ends the first building there. And how much time do we have? Okay, the next block is the Opera House block.
The next house?
I'm sorry. Oh, that's, yeah, that's it.
And she's our leader.
I know. My brain is fried. Okay, this is the Opera House, which was built next door, which is gone now, which would have been just this side of the loose brick building. It was built in 1881, and the Opera House was the upstairs part of the building. Later on, the Presbyterian Church organized and met in upstairs of this building in 1884. The library was in one half of the upstairs in 1894, and Doc Hertzler came to town in 1895. And the reason he came to town was there was a large tornado in 1895. It took a lot of buildings, took some lives, and there was a lot of people injured. So he had been doctoring in Mount Ridge, and he came to Halstead to help with the injured, and he just stayed. So that was in 1895. He was upstairs. And he decided that he needed more room upstairs, so he kicked the library out. I'm not bitter, no. And Then the library moved back down into the Central Hotel where they were earlier. Upstairs there was also Dr. Harder, who was a dentist, and the American Legion was upstairs from 1947 to 1958. There were several doctors upstairs. Besides Dr. Hertzler, there was Dr. Hunsberger, Dr. Wetke, and Dr. Richard Howry, which is one of Buster's relatives. They had that offices upstairs through 1907.
You want a quick comment about my uncle?
Sure.
He was Dr. Hertzler's second assistant. And at that time, Dr. Hertzler was spending his weeks in Kansas City, traveling back here just on the weekends by train. Well, my uncle, my great uncle, got tired of running the hospital all week and him just being here for 2 days. So he quit and went to Newton and really aggravated Dr. Hertzler. And in all, I've done a volunteer down at the Learning Center for several years. There's not one mention of him. I mean, Hertzler obliterated him. There's not one mention that he was his second assistant for about 4 or 5 years. He actually said that he would bury my great uncle. Well, my great uncle actually came to his funeral, so it didn't work out. He went on and established a successful career in business.
One of the many stories about Dr. Hertzler, I'm sure. Okay, that was upstairs, and then Heggie and the Lehman Brothers had the building from 1894 to 1914. Do I have a picture of the Lehman Brothers? Picture lady?
That's it.
Okay. In half of the building, we started having cafes. We had Spores Cafe in 1920. We had the Silver Moon Cafe in 1920. We had Bontons in 1920. Sounds like they didn't last very long. Of course, 1920, that's the start of the Depression. And restaurants, you know how hard it is to run a restaurant.
No, it's 1930.
29, 1929 actually.
Do I have
First it started
29?
in 29.
29.
What's 29?
Depression started.
Oh, okay.
You had the flu.
I had the flu. I had the flu in 1929, Jack Baker says. Okay, the influenza was here about that time. That could be part of it. And then also, Dan Boozer had a restaurant there until 1934. Then we had Van Tile's Grocery. So we turned from cafe, we went into the grocery business from 34 to 46. Vanna, I think I have a picture of that too.
Yeah, hurry up with it, come on.
Van Tile's Grocery. Yep, there it is.
Oh,
That one right there.
you can't really see it, it's gonna be on my left, so you're right.
That was through 46. And then we had Bonhoeff's Market. 1948, we had Eddie's Lawn and Cycle Shop in 48. And then here's another name we remembered. 1948, Carl Scheffler had a sales and service. He serviced appliances and radios and TVs. And then the Opera House burned down in 1958. The story is the Legion had a party upstairs, and they think ashes were put in the trash and it burned the building down. So they demolished it after that. This would be right just north of the Loose Brick. So we're moving down one. This is where the Loose Brick is right now. In 1908 to 1921, it was the Farmer State Bank. And it went under during the Depression in 1929. In 1936 to 46, there was a sweet shop, and I think that picture shows the sweet shop on right There, it says Sweet Shop.
Sweet Shop would be on the right.
Yeah.
My right, your left.
And from 1946 to 51, it was Bocce's Cafe. Anyone besides Bessie remember Bocce's Cafe? Are you the oldest one here, Bess?
Hey, speak up. Don't just sit there. But that's Neil Bachman's dad.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then from 1951 to 62, Millie's Cafe was in there.
Yes,
Somebody remembers one for me.
everyone.
Millie Kane and Luke Kane. And then from there, it was Town and Country with Betty Hughes until 1973. And then the only one record we have of the next one is there was a sign over the door in one of the pictures, and it was the Golden Steer Steakhouse. That's the only information we have. In 1977-ish, it was the West Wind Cafe, W-E-N-D, West Wind. And then Pizza Hut, 1978 through 87. And then Donna Walker bought it and turned it into the Loose Brick Bar about 2001. And now it's empty. I think Joel Flory has purchased the building. But upstairs from 1918 to 1956, there was a Southwestern Bell telephone exchange. The switchboard was upstairs. So that's, do the math, 1956, 1918, 40 years of being upstairs. And then they built a building over here for the switchboard. Dr. Collier, a dentist, was upstairs from 1925 to 40. And there was also a chiropractor up there, a lady chiropractor from around 1949. Okay, now the next building is Pepper's. Let's see, what do I have? I think there might be a picture of, no, I think there, yeah, let's show this one. Well, this one is a composite of Main Street. So it shows several of the old wooden buildings. Okay, 1904, there was a fellow named Matthews from Hutch who had a candy store and a restaurant. And in 1905, there's no mention of him. So he was here maybe a year. 1905, we have the Palace Drugstore by J.C. Girk, and that was a Rexall drugstore, and I think that picture might show the Rexall drugstore. But these names went back and forth. Sometimes it was the Palace Drugstore, and sometimes it was Rexall. Then we have Melton Butler and his wife. That's a familiar name. They had a drugstore, and they had, I was told, they had comic books by the front door, so it made it really easy for the young boys in town to grab a comic book and just kind of skedaddle out that front door. I don't know who told me that.
You had to watch out for Mrs. Butler, though. She was pretty short.
They also tested TV tubes, which, you know, we don't do that now. They were there from 1946 to 1963, so they were there quite a while on Main Street. Then there's a gap, and we turn into the restaurant scene and bar scene here. The Office Bar, which was called The Office, started in 1978, and then it turned into the Hungry Prospector. Red Walker bought it.
The Red Walker had the office too.
The Office, okay.
Yeah.
He had both of those.
Change the name.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Red Walker had both of those buildings, and he changed the name to the Hungry Prospector, 1994 to 2001. Then we have a restaurant. Thank you, Vanna. The Two Brothers Restaurant and Grill by the Moore Brothers. We had Joneses. They had the restaurant. I think it was called Shakey's. Is that the Joneses? Okay.
There was a restaurant in there between
Was there?
There was what?
There was a restaurant in there between Nemours and Shakey's.
Yeah, there was well, Susan Hanks bought it from Red Walker and had continued the bar for a year or two. I don't know what happened between her and,
There was a Martinez, they had a, can't remember what they called it. It was just American food, some Mexican. Just
and what was it called? Who was it?
James Martinez owned it just for
Yeah.
maybe a year.
Yeah, I knew there was something in there, but I don't.
I can't remember what they called it.
After Shakey's restaurant, we had Al's Place. He was here for 2 years. Remember Al?
Yeah.
He had some really fancy meals, didn't he?
They were good. They were good, but he priced himself out of all of everything. It was good.
And then we had the Legacy Grill, and the only, the only way we know there was a Legacy Grill there, we just have a business card, and that's it. There's no ads, it's not written up anywhere in the newspapers, all we have is a business card. Then from there, it went to Twisted Joe's, which had hot dogs, Fiesta Mexican Grill, and peppers. So that takes care of that next building.
Yeah, I have some. But there was a while that Billy's Cafe was in that building too. You didn't say that.
Did you get that, Bess?
Have nothing on it.
See Bessie afterwards.
Also, the legacy that came after Al's was basically, they had a hot plate. The building itself, when Al left and when Al was in there, was not in the running legacy. Were basically working off a hot plate in the back.
And who were they in between
That was after Al.
after Al?
I don't even remember. They were not there very long. But they had a leaky roof in the back kitchen. Joe and I kept trying to support every restaurant that showed up. I mean, it was just kind of what we did. And it was a hot plate. Yeah, it wasn't very good. I mean, the food wasn't bad, but the situation was rough. Right there.
So things change a lot in each building. Next we have the Tibbetts building. Vanna, please. Is that Tibbetts? No. Let me see, the tall one? Yeah, that's the Tibbetts building. Okay, that's the one we all know and love over there across the street. It was built in 1884, and I know that why? Because the building says it. A Mrs. A.M. Knox owned it in 1887, and she had dry goods and books in there. J. Jewett, J-A-Y, Jewett, married Mrs. Knox, and it became A.M. and J.F. Dry Goods. And in the basement of that building, in 1885, there was a colored barber, and his name was Mr. Drain. And if you remember a few months ago, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, they found a void underneath the sidewalk in front of the Tibbetts building, and they investigated. Well, us historians knew that there was a stairway under there. Well, they're all going, hey, there's a stairway under there. Yeah, we knew that. The stairway was on the outside of the building, and there was the metal railing around it. You went down the stairs, and you could go into the basement, and that's where Mr. Drain was. And there was also a print shop down there for a while in 1902. But the problem with having businesses in the basement on Main Street,
Free water.
yeah, free water. So I read somewhere that the first flood, and I don't remember the dates, this was before I did this program, but if you don't write things down when you first find them, you can't find them again. But they moved everything out of the basement because they knew it was going to flood. and then they put everything back down. And we're talking barber shop chairs and printing machines, printers. What am I?
Paint
Press.
press.
Yeah.
Well, the flood was probably 1903 and 1904.
Okay, very
There
good.
wasn't another flood till 1944 on Main Street.
But I thought there was two close together there.
1903 and 1904.
1903 and 1904.
That's pretty close.
We worked too close together. We're like an old married couple now. So the first flood, they moved everything up. And then the second flood came along next year and they said, we're not moving stuff up again. So I don't know if the businesses closed then or what, or if they cleaned up everything. I don't know the rest of the story. As you know, there's not much in the basements on Main Street because of the flooding. In 1902, Bunty and Sons had a department store in that building. 1908 to 1920, Ferguson Grocery was there. 1920 until 1946, so that's 26 years. Burnett had a grocery store there. Dr. Burnett's father, right?
Guy Burnett's father.
What?
Guy Burnett's father.
Yes. And he called it the Ideal Grocery. And from what I understand, they lived upstairs in the building from 1943 to 59. Johnny Bassoni, recognize that name, he had People's Cash Groceries from 1946 to 1977. So he was there for 31 years. And Mike Weedle bought it from him, and in 1982, Mike Weedle was there, but I don't know when Mike sold his business. So that was the end of the grocery store era in the Tibbet building. From there, we went to all sorts of businesses. We went from Chet Hartman having an auction house. We went from Jay Armfield from Sedgwick with the teen center. Merle, I don't know who Merle was, but he had used furniture. Halstead Antique Mall. Bollinger's Photo Studio. River Point Church. Crossroads Community Church, and now Halstead Life Church is the last thing there. Okay, the next building is the Bookwalter Building, which is where the real estate company building is. And it too was a wooden building. In 1885, David Goertz, G-O-E-R-T-Z. That would probably work.
Yeah, there's a building.
Give me an A. Yeah, that's good.
Is that where you want?
It's down the road. It's that one. Right next to this one, yeah. Right next to the Tibbets.
Okay, so that double one
Okay. Let's see. Oh, David Goertz. I mean, is that a German name or is that a German name? That he had sold books and notions in that building from 1885 to 1896, and the library was in there for a brief time also. So the library's changed different places too. And the new building was built in 1913, which is the Bookwalters building. And in the north side, can anybody tell me what was there?
Sundry.
Somebody said theater.
Ideal Theater.
Ideal
Yeah.
Theater.
Yeah, well, because look who's here. Beth Ann's here, who owns the building now. Yeah, from 1915 to 1957, so that's 42 years of the theater being there.
Yeah.
I think, Vanna, when you're done there, there's a picture of the
theater.
theater. Thank you. There was a fire in 1962 from the drugstore side, which would that have been your side, the north side?
Yeah, our side up in the attic, it's all black still from the fire.
from the fire. And then it was vacant for a while after the fire. And then Joe Chesky, old man Joe, right? No? The young
Brother
one?
of Vic
Vic's
Chesky.
brother, Vic's brother.
Vic
Oh.
Chesky Jr.'s brother.
Vic Chesky Jr.'s brother.
Dr. Chesky's nephew or something?
Other son.
Okay.
Grandson.
He opened a hobby and craft shop. And I don't have any dates for that. But in 1972, we had Rogers Jewelry, which was here for 5 months, and then it closed.
Vic's son, Vic the doctor's son.
1977, we had Red Walker appearing again. He opened the Ding-a-Ling Lounge in 1977, and by 1982, Bill Manning, who used to be a pharmacist at the clinic, had a pharmacy in that building. 1984, Halstead Community Bible Church was there. And 2001 to 2002, Brick Street, 2004. I had that wrong. 2001 to 2004, Brick Street shop was in there. Donina Davidson had that. She's in the audience. And it's currently the Main Street Realty business with Beth Ann Kingsley. Yes?
When did Clancy and Frida Warren have the,
He was the dentist that we talked about earlier, so he went to another upstairs building. Okay, now we go to the south side, where it started with 1915, the Murrow brothers, M-I-E-R-E-U brothers. They had a clothing store, and they were also called the M&M brothers. 1917, Mr. Reed from Newton purchased the stock and had somebody else run it, which was Robert Willem
Corners had it
and Henry Rupp.
before.
1928, this is a lot of dates. Everybody glossing over here. 1928 to 1945, Space, which we heard about earlier, he owned it, and he opened a drugstore and had drinks, etc. He bought Ingalls out, because Ingalls was in there at one point. 1939 was the bus depot. So we had bus transportation in 39.
Well, no, she's on
In 1946, Harmon's had novelty ice cream. He was there 1 year. 1947, Hewitt's Gifts and Drugs was not even a year. 1947 to 1952, we have Red Connor's Sundries. Who did you ask about, Karen?
Clancy Warren?
Oh yeah, he's coming. Halstead Sundries in 1955. Anybody remember that? My mom would remember that because she graduated high school in 55. Oops, just told you her age. And that was operated by Ike Williams. Kaufman's.
Red car before that. You got
Oh,
that?
I have that.
Okay.
Yeah. Kaufman's in 1962. There was a fire in 1962 in the drugstore, and I've heard the word arson, but nobody knows for sure what happened there. Now, in 1963, Clarence Warren had the Beehive. L&W Sundries from 73 to 75, Bale Sundries to 1977, and then from the south side, Robert's Ding-a-Ling moved to the north side. Then we have Bob Roberts Tavern, Rapids Tavern, and it sits vacant now. So that brings us to the end of that block of buildings. Post office. Okay, this is These are the wooden buildings there on Main Street. 1913 to 1917, that was the post office. And the guy in the middle of the picture with a beard is Joe Trigo's grandfather?
Great-grandfather.
Great-great? And also Joe.
Scudder.
Oh, that's Scudder. I love that name, Scudder. So, and we don't have much information on that building. In 1933, it was demolished. And there was a new building in 1941. The Western Auto Association store was in there with Louis Unruh, which was Merlin Unruh's father. Everybody remember Merlin Unruh? Then it was D&F Appliance, which was Detweiler and Fraser. There was a Frigidaire sign out,
They moved across the street from next door here.
and they moved over here at one point.
They
There was,
From here over there.
oh, from here to over there. There was a lot of moving around during that time. Lee Cox had appliances in that building, which was Craig Cox's father. Then we had the Banker's Check building by Henry Ward, and there was a gift shop in there also. And in 2017, Melanie Beckett opened her hairdresser there, and she's still there. All right, these are the ones that are confusing to me. This,
Somewhere in here about the middle of the block, the street numbers get changed. And it really messes us up when we're trying to figure it out.
and it's the building with the building we're talking about next is the one that's got the white front next door to Melanie's over here, which had two businesses, the north side and the south side. So I'm going to do my best here. When it was the wooden buildings, which would have been 1880s probably, we had George Lehman's plumbing business, tin and bike shop. 1911 we had R.C. Hooker grocery store, Walter Gressing grocery store. And then 1920, we have C.F. Howery Hardware. It was a wooden building and didn't last long. Is that right, Buzz?
Yeah, that was my grandfather.
Okay.
I wasn't around. Actually, I never heard about it. Family never talked about it. Only lasted 2 years. We went back to the farm.
Okay. Okay. 1921, the Music House. Fred McDowell and Mr. Supernow had records and jukeboxes there. 1921, the Dunn grocery store. So those are the old buildings. And this is when they built the new one.
3 doors south of Main Street.
On the north side, it was J.C. Elliott's Insurance from 1948, and then there's a big gap, so I don't know how long J.C. Elliott had a business in there. 1973, it was Rundstrom and Will. They were public accountants. 1977 to 82 was Equus Beds Management District, Tom Bell manager. 1982, Adrian and Epp accountants. And 1995, Needful Things, and I think that was Linda Elward, wasn't it? Okay.
Chris Davis.
What?
Chris Davis.
Chris Davis?
It was a flower shop.
Oh, it was a flower. Okay, and then maybe Linda after that. Linda was in there somewhere. See, that's where it gets confusing. 1995 to 97, the scissor shop was in there with Tana Senner. Okay. On the what side? The north side, okay. The south side, in 1940 to 78, it was the KG&E building for 38 years. Long time. Dr. McKinney, the eye doctor, was in there in 1995. Triple Check was in there for a bit in 2007. And Marcy Mueller, the current owner, has a party rental business. Does it have a name? It's a party rental business. Okay. So that building.
Another question.
Uh-huh.
Bessie, where was George Stevens' shoe repair place?
We're coming up to it.
Oh, okay. That's, I was thinking it was further north.
Okay, let's see. The next building is part of D'Angelo's complex, the Gathering Place. In 1921 to 29, Ben Pinter, clothiers and cleaners. Howard Hinshaw was the manager in the 30s. 1940 to 45, Morgan Clayton, clothing and cleaners. This is the cleaners building. 1945, Beutler Cleaners, Beutler. And then in 1951, who bought it?
Lloyd Hall.
Yep. Lloyd Hall bought it, and he was Mrs. Beutler's brother, so that was the connection there. And he called it the Fashion Cleaners and Dress Shop. And Lloyd worked there almost until the day he died, July 6, 2005. So from 1951 to 2005, he worked there in the sweatshop. Oh my goodness. And then Weber's purchased the building, and it's called the Gathering Place. Okay, now we have the north side of D'Angelo's. Do we need a break?
No.
Okay.
We're rolling now.
Cookie or a drink or anything?
No, keep rolling. We're rolling now.
Okay, we're rolling. All right. The north side of D'Angelo's, it starts in 1945, and I don't know what was in there before. That was something was in there, but we don't have any record. Betty's Cafe, and remember Wassinger's Cafe?
Yes.
Felix was the cook, and his wife was?
Wilana.
Yeah.
Very good. Next we had Edith's, Wilana was in there. Felix and Wilana were in there from 1951 to 1977-ish. Edith's Cafe, Edith Unruh, in 1977. 1978 to 1986 was the Cozy Kitchen with Dean Mason and Vinny operating that. And then D'Angelo's and Gambino's and D'Angelo's. And then the south side of that building, when it was a wooden building, Dr. Hoover, like in President Hoover, Dr. Hoover had a physician's business in that corner building, well, not quite the corner. 1888 to 1915, we have our first barber shops. We have Vedder, Wood, Mace, and Thornhill was in that building for a time. Then we turned into a restaurant for a few years. 1933, the Green Lantern Restaurant. 1939 to 40, 1 year, we had the Blue Light Restaurant. And then we turned into a shoe repair business. 1940s, we have our first shoe repair with Boozer, and Hibbler was his partner. 1943, Scheffler Shoe Repair. 1944, we're changing pretty fast here. We have Quigley's Shoe Hospital. 1946, Bill Kane owned it and sold to Mr. Stevenson.
Stevens. Where's Stevens?
Bill Bachhaus was in there for a while with shoe repair. 1964, it was the Dodge shoe repair. Art Bachhaus was in there in 1976. And currently it's D'Angelo's. In 1948, in the back, there was Hebert's Transfer. And when we talk about transfer, are we talking about somebody that had a truck and would just, like, two men in a truck? Is that kind of what, like, they, sort of like the precursor of that?
When your granddad had it, I know he had to plow your garden up. He had a little Ford tractor. He had a truck. He could haul stuff around, clean your garage out. Edgar Hansen had it later.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Edgar Hansen would clean out your junk for you, then put it in his antique shop.
Where is he when you need him? The next building, which would be the part of, the Bookwalters built it, but it wasn't called the Bookwalter Building. It's the one that has that big long awning over it. The one end has the Weber's farm office in it, and then the barber shop, and then Henry's Chase. So that's where we are now. That was built somewhere around 1923. E.J. Bookwalter had a printing business in there. And then we have another cafe. 1932 to 1945, Rich's Cafe, he advertised a meal a minute. A precursor to McDonald's, maybe. 1945 to 46, for 1 year, it was Russell's Cafe. Then it was Gale's Cafe. And then in 46, we had 3 of them in there in 46. They sold it to the Bazil brothers, B-A-Z-I-L. Never heard that name before. B&H Cafe, 1946 to 56. Lewis and Grace Robbins had it in 58. And in 1958, George Suter purchased from Robbins. 1977 to 84, Bar Gem Beauty with Barbara Pitts, and her manager was Francis Gunn through 1978. And 1994 to 99 it was the Farm Bureau office with Bill Charlson. So that's the end of the D'Angelo buildings. In the middle of that building, we have the barber shops. 1923 to 1982, Thornhill Brothers. Eugene and Marion. And which one was it that, Bussy, that started his own barber shop when he was still in high school? Was it Marion or Eugene? Marion. He started it when he was still in high school, and he was there cutting hair until 1982. So 82 minus 23 is, I don't know, hard to figure. Long time. And in the back of that, of his barber shop, was Friendly's Beauty Shop in 1951. Then there was a fire, 1951.
The Friendly Movie Shop had just moved there from the back of the independent office that week.
I was going to say that.
Okay. You hesitated. Don't hesitate.
Well, I had to get the paper out. Okay, in 1951, early morning fire raged for more than 4 hours. That is every Main Street's fear, is that there's going to be a fire on Main Street. And it gutted one of Halstead's largest buildings and destroyed 5 businesses on Main Street. It was the B&H Cafe, Halstead Floral Company, Thornhill Barber Shop, Friendly's Barber Shop,
Like the
and
printing shop,
the printing shop,
friendly printing, no,
Friendly
friendly
Beauty,
beauty shop.
Friendly
shop.
Beauty, and the Sneed Transfer Service. And this building that we said before was owned by Bookwalter, Susan Bookwalter. The fire started in the rear of the B&H Cafe owned by Lewis Robbins, and they think it might have started with a motor in the cafe. All the interior walls of the building were left standing. Firewalls on each side of the main building kept the flames from, entering the other buildings. And he is right that the beauty shop, the Friendly Beauty Shop, Mrs. Dillman had just moved there 2 weeks before after months of looking for a place to have her business, and then it burned. And then also the Halstead Independent had 2 tons of newsprint owned by the Independent were moved from another storage place into the burned building only last week, and the paper, of course, was destroyed. So they moved it in, and then it burned.
In the next issue of the Independent, they found out that paper wasn't destroyed. It was packed so tightly that it didn't burn. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Let's
they
see.
had ordered some more paper from their supplier. They said, well, that paper's okay. It won't burn. So they went and looked and it wasn't.
From there, we have another barber shop, which was Beneviat, and he also had the radio shop there till 2007-ish. Fred Walters was in there in 2015. McElwain Barber Shop, 2017. 2018 to 20, Elvis Wilson was in there, and that was during COVID. And he had a rough time because of all the regulations with COVID. And right now, it's Valerie Provo, and it's still a barbershop, men's cut. Let's listen to the music for a minute, take a little break. Okay, the next building, south, we're still in the Bookwalter buildings. There was three businesses in there. In 1937 to 40, it was Stein's Home Furnishings. They later moved across the street. In 1940, J.C. Hebert, Halstead Floral, advertised every blooming thing. 1955, Roy Unruh, my grandpa, had a Halstead transfer in the back of the building. 1962, Halstead Floral was there. You know, I don't know when they started or when they sold to Joe Flask in 1971. And I'm thinking Joe was in there until 94, I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Karen?
It was probably around there that he moved over to the Stein building.
Moved over, okay. And then Brenda Farmer had it and had Sheer Image hairdressing in there from 1994 to 2017. And now it belongs to Henry's Chase, which is a decorating store owned by Whitney King. Okay. We're getting close. We have 2 more buildings. They're both the neighbor store. I think we have a picture. Anna,
Get with it. Yeah.
I think we have one taken from the south side looking north. That one's fun too. That one. That one, please. We're talking about the 2 end ones, or at least the end one there. That's standing where the neighbor store is, looking north. Those are the wooden buildings. 1915, the wooden building. R.O. Howard, Dr. R.O. Howard was in that building. And the reason we know that is because we can see a sign at some point that has R.O. Howard. There's not much known about those buildings. They were torn down, you know, like all the wooden buildings, they were torn down or burned down. In 1921, we have a new building, and we have markets in there then. We have Home Market by Rook and Poos, P-O-O-S. 1922, we have the Home Meat Market. In 1922, we also have H.D. Rupp. He sold it to Harmon Armstrong. 1923, we have Schattenberg's Bakery. I remember my mom talking about Schattenberg's. 1925, Halstead Bakery and Fancy Groceries. Bess and I were laughing about what makes it a fancy grocery. We didn't. 1936, thank you, Janet. 1936, it was the Hometown Grocery. And probably everybody remembers 1939 to 78, which is another math question there. Dennis Variety.
Yes.
Oh, Anna.
Oh, yes.
We have a picture. We have a picture of Dennis Variety Store. A color one. Yay! There we go. We all remember that. Yeah. And then in 78, Dan and Janine Henderson purchased it. And I think they had it till 93, but I'm not sure. That's when the neighbors took it over, so I don't know if it was empty until then. But in 93, it's the neighbor store. Okay, the last building. Schattenberg moved to the corner. He was over here, and then he moved to the end in 1936. And in 1951 to 59, the Food Bowl, Jake Bowler purchased the store, which would be Bess's uncle, my great uncle. 1962, Schmidt had it. That's all I have is Schmidt. I don't know. Anybody know Schmidt?
There was an Anderson in between there too, I don't know anything about
Of who?
it. Anderson?
Anderson? I don't have him on my notes here. And then in 1964, we had Ernie Evans.
That was the end of that.
And in 75, Jake Enns was in there.
I was going to say, is that Jane?
And somewhere in there, Diddy Huffman had a grocery store too.
That was the end of it.
That was the end of the grocery stores.
Yeah, Minnie did her in.
Diddy, what a name, Diddy.
Red Huffman's brother.
Well, of course. And then we have a bank. 1977, we had the first federal bank. In 94, the Central National Bank was in there. 1997 to 2001, Don Steiner Satellite was in there. And it's currently the food pantry connected with Neighbor Store. And even though it's not on Main Street, but behind the Neighbor Store on 3rd Street, Vi's Laundry was back there. Carl Scheffler owned it. And there was a suspicious fire. There seemed to be several suspicious fires. But also, in the more recent years, Melanie Beckett had started her beauty shop there, and then also Linda Elbert had her quilting shop there. So that takes us down one block of Halstead. Oh my goodness. But let's spread our vision out just a little bit before we open it up for questions or comments. There were a lot of car dealers through the years. Somebody count with me. Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge, Plymouth, Hudson, Buick, Lincoln, Hudson Essex, Overland, Wiley's and Wiley's Knight, Pontiac,
Willis.
Willis,
Knight.
not Wiley's.
No, Willis, like Willis Jeep.
I didn't have one of those cars. Pontiac, Star, and Studebaker. Hang on, Pat.
Sorry.
There were several tractor and implement dealers. John Deere, International Harvester, Brumley, and Fordson. At one time, there were 4 newspapers, 9 photographers, 5 mills or elevators, 5 hotels and several boarding houses, 3 railroads, the Santa Fe, which is now the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, Frisco, and AVI. There were 4 barbershops at one time. 1950s, there were 5 grocery stores. And there were a few uncommon enterprises for a small town. And 3 of them are, there was a brick factory south of town, a broom factory, and a cigar factory.
So many bars.
We don't talk about the bars. We're in a bar right now.
One of the
So,
only bars of prohibition in Kansas for a long time.
yeah. If you know something that we don't know, please let Bus know. He's been working on that database for 25, 30 years. It's quite interesting to look at. Next time if we do this, did I say next time? Oh my goodness. Hopefully we could maybe have go into a photo montage, because Bess has a lot of photos of some of these things. But Bess has gotten information from all sorts of different resources. The Halstead newspapers, the high school yearbooks, the White Banner, which was the nurses' newsletter, the Echo, which was the high school newspaper, word of mouth from Susie Bowler, Norma Windling, and others. And there was a Gazette or something that, I forget what it was. It was an old-timey newspaper.
In Halstead?
No, it was more like Harvey County or Kansas, I forget. Maybe Collier's, I forget. Anyway, so we got information from a lot of different places. And some of it, is questionable.
Telephone books, did you mention?
Oh, yeah, telephone books, yeah. That's a,
Directories, county directories, city directories.
yeah.
A lot of old directories over the years
Yeah.
downloaded.
So don't throw anything away like that. If you're going through your parents' stuff or your stuff and you have old phone books, see if the Historical Society wants it first, because we're always looking for more information. Because, like Bessie said, he has 700 entries, but he doesn't know where they were. So that's a lot. Comments, questions?
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Oh, Vanna.
Yes, Pat?
We had a couple pictures we didn't go through, I think. Yeah. This one, I'll leave it up here, but this one's kind of fun because it's looking at the theater, and it's the Alaskan is the movie, but it's during the winter. Uh-oh. This is why I had you do it.
Pat, how's that?
And if you notice, there's evergreen trees that they've planted. So, we fought trees on Main Street all these years. We plant them, we take them out. We plant them, we take them out. Well, that's probably in the 20s, looking at the cars. So they were planting trees back then, too. So I just thought that was an interesting view. I think that's all the pictures then.
Okay. Yes.
I'm done.
Thank you.
We still have cookies cookies and lemonade, and Jared's gonna put a little bit on Facebook, so you look for that in a couple weeks, and if you have any questions, be sure and take one of our cards, and it has all our information on how to get in touch with us.
Pat wanted to know if Bessie had something to say. I laugh at that.
What's that?
Do you have something to say? You were going to talk briefly about when you came to town. I think this is kind of a fun story because what do the kids do nowadays? You know, they ride their bikes down or their e-bikes down Main Street and they go down to the pool, but listen to Bess for just about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, Bess.
Okay, I was born in 1945, so I can probably remember in the early 50s. Come to town for shopping. And first thing we'd go to, me and my mom, would go to my uncle's food bowl. We'd go in the side door, and that was a meat market. In the back was a bakery. That whole part, there was a laundry, and the church now was a bakery. And I could probably weasel some kind of treat out of Uncle Jake. And then I'd go on down, if my cousins weren't there, Greg and Mike, I'd probably go on down the street, stop in at Dennis Variety. You got to consider I probably had 50 cents in my pocket, so I really couldn't afford too much. I had to be pretty careful. But anyway, I'd look at the candy, I'd look at the toys. I remember the glass candy containers, the Jeeps and the stuff with the hard little round candies in. Now they're worth a lot of money. They were probably about 25 cents in or less, and I couldn't afford one. But anyway, I'd look in there a while, probably wouldn't buy anything. Go on straight down the street to probably Butler's and look at the comic books. Maybe buy a nickel comic book. And then I'd cross the street, go over to Hensley Service, where my uncle and one time my grandfather both worked. And if I cut that just right to on break, I could probably get a bottle of pop, probably a Dr. Pepper and the little 10-2-4 clock on them, and 7 ounces. And I'd there a while. Then they go on down the street to Freddie's Tavern, another uncle. And hang around there. I'd offer to do odd jobs or something, but then I'd get coins marked in red for the pinball machine, and he got those back. So he'd let me play the pinball machine all I wanted. So that was and then I'd walk back and find my mom at the grocery store. But that didn't last too long, because by the time I was 12 or so, I was foreman. I had to drive tractors and trucks and stuff. So those afternoon trips into town were over, unless it happened to be raining or something. But there was Saturday night yet. And Saturday night was like old Saturdays every day. Streets were full. You couldn't find a parking space. Right in here, they had a parallel parking down the middle of the street. There'd be a line of cars parked down the middle of the street. The store stayed open till midnight, or 11 or so. But my uncle at the food bowl, he said he had to stay open till midnight because people would come in and do their shopping and then put their perishables in his cooler and go to the movie. And wouldn't come back till the movie was over, so we had to stay open until it. And I remember coming in and kids were roaming around, and she talked about Scheffler's over here. My first TV set was in his window, and their kid would be standing outside looking at the TV through the window. Probably none of us had one at home yet. They'd go to the sundries. I can remember watching the older kids play pinball there. I remember once one of the older ones, high school or maybe even older, said, "Who is this kid?" Somebody said, "That's Bus Howard's kid, you better leave him alone." So somewhere I'd hook up with my folks and we'd go home. But I can remember all of one Saturday night was over. They decided not to stay open. You know, people were getting TVs, roads were better, cars were faster. And it was the last Saturday night. Well, I don't know exactly when it was. There's something I can tell from Lydia Mayfield's book. People would actually, in town, would drive uptown in the afternoon and park, find a good parking space, go home, eat supper, and walk down and sit in their cars and watch the people go by. So that's my remembrance of Saturday. Yeah, I can remember Main Street in 1951 when we had the flood. An old Saturday carnival was set up on Main Street. So I would have been 6, but I remember that pretty clearly. Right here in the intersection, they had it blockaded off, and there was a 1951 Studebaker they raffled off. I don't know who won it, but I can remember looking at that, thinking that'd be nice. Later on, I had my grandpa's hand-me-down 1951 Studebaker. I drove to high school quite a bit. But that's what I had about the 50s in Halstead.
That's good. Thank you.
Anybody else?
That's a good question.
When did they stop doing the Christmas tree in the middle of the intersection at Second and Main?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, they said it was dangerous, although I never heard of a wreck happening, but I think it
Well,
was
they
too
used to
much.
have a four-way stop sign.
I think it was too much trouble.
Well, you know what, it must have been.
I was in high school, I think.
I think about 60.
Well, I think later than that, because I can remember our band coming
Yeah.
at Christmas time and coming to the
I don't remember.
Santa, to the Christmas tree or Santa Claus.
63,
was there.
4, 5. It must have already been gone. I don't remember.
Yeah, I was thinking we're 60 or 61.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Trees in the middle, they took it out.
I don't think I've ever seen a picture of that.
I would say one final thing. The Historical Society are the caretakers of the Santa Fe Depot, and we are always in need of volunteers and money to fix it up. It's a 1917 building, and the cargo doors are wooden and they're falling apart, and there's just always something to fix. So if you want to volunteer sometime with your labor or your money or your just way to go, pat on the back, it would be much appreciated.